My life fades, the vision dims. All that remains are memories. I remember a time of chaos, ruined dreams, the wasted land. But most of all, I remember the road warrior, the man we called Max. To understand who he was, you have to go back to another time when the world was powered by the black fuel, and the desert sprouted great cities of pipe and steel. Gone now, swept away. For reasons long forgotten, two mighty warrior tribes went to war and touched off a blaze which engulfed them all. Without fuel, they were nothing. They'd built a house of straw. The thundering machine sputtered and stopped. Their leaders talked and talked and talked. But nothing could stem the avalanche. Their world crumbled. The cities exploded. A whirlwind of looting, a firestorm of fear. Men began to feed on men. On the roads, it was a white line nightmare. Only those mobile enough to scavenge, brutal enough to pillage, would survive. The gangs took over the highways, ready to wage war for a tank of juice. And in this maelstrom of decay, ordinary men were battered and smashed. Men like Max, the warrior Max. In the roar of an engine, he lost everything and became a shell of a man, a burnt-out, desolate man, a man haunted by the demons of his past, a man who wandered out into the wasteland. And it was here, in this blighted place, that he learned to live again. All right, so that is the opening monologue from The Road Warrior, Mad Max 2. The Mad Max series of films is my all-time favorite series of films. Mad Max is the truth. The Road Warrior is the legend. Beyond Thunderdome is the myth. And Fury Road is just about one of the greatest motion pictures ever made. Period. End of story. And now we do have a nice selection of post-apocalyptic themed adventure games. This, of course, is not all of them. I'm sure there are some that I am missing, but this is my collection. And today we are just going to take a look at each of these very briefly, talk about a few points of each of them. So maybe if you would like to get one, you might be able to make a better, more informed decision. So I'm going to make some room real quick here. And we're just going to kind of start with one stack and work our way through them. All right, so first up is Dark Venture. So Dark Venture is if you like your post-apocalypse on the weird side. This is probably the closest thing we're ever going to get to a Gamma World board game. It's also the biggest game in the smallest box that I know of. The size of the box actually betrays the game a little bit, I think. It sets a kind of a weird expectation that this is going to be a small, maybe a somewhat simple game. But it is not. It is a huge table hogging game, and it takes quite a bit of time, and quite a bit of effort to get into. Make no mistake about it, it's big, it's inventive, it's somewhat flawed, but super creative, and there really isn't another game like it. Unfortunately, it is also out of print. Hopefully it comes back into print. Hopefully Robert Lemon is looking into it, and because I know quite a few people want this game. It does tend to play better as a competitive game, which we're going to see that a lot of the apocalyptic games are better competitive, and that is kind of the nature of the theme, the nature of that genre, pitting man against man. But it can be really fun solo, especially if you use my official, unofficial, or unofficial, official house rules that Robert Lemon has posted onto Board Game Geek. So yes, that is Dark Venture. Next up, we're going to take a look at Fallen Land. Now, Fallen Land is just about ready to hit Kickstarter with a second edition. So this is perfect timing for this game. This is a big, sprawling, highly detailed narrative game. If you want a ton of narrative, non-combat encounters, this is your game. This game, you are taking place in a burnt out post-apocalyptic America. I think the new game, the new version, expands up into a little bit of Canada and maybe south into Mexico a little bit. At least it looks like it does based on the map. But again, this is more on the competitive side, but it does have an okay co-op solo mode. And like I said, if you like narrative and non-combat encounters, this is your game. If you like loot and building a party of wildly different characters, this is your game. If you don't like bookkeeping and keeping track of dozens of small bonuses and stats spread across a half a dozen or so different places, this is not your game. This game feels like you are managing a party. It feels like you're kind of a bookkeeper for a party of post-apocalyptic survivors and also managing a town. But I'm not sure if I'm going to back the second edition. I might just do the new expansion and box if everything is compatible, because I already have everything for first edition. And I mean, it is so jam-packed with the 2 expansions. There are so many narrative encounters in this game. A really, really neat experience and kind of a messy game, but hey, that's okay. Next up is the biggest box on the table, and that is Defenders of the Last Stand, a game by Richard Lanius and Jason Maxwell. So this is kind of a retheme of Defenders of the Realm. And I think it's really funny here at the back here. It says Defenders of the Last Stand, a post-apocalyptic adventure game by Richard Lanius. And they mention Run, Fight, or Die is the game he made. Hello, how about Arkham Horror? How about Defenders of the Realm? I mean, yeah. Kind of a weird call out, but this game is probably the most traditional style cooperative game on this list. It is very much in the vein of Pandemic, of a threat management style game, where you and the other players, or you solo, have to put out 5 fires and you only have 3 buckets of water. So if you like that Pandemic style game, this is the game for you. There is still a lot of adventure to be had. There's loot, there are enemies, there are different kind of encounters to have, but just know going in, it's a lot like Defenders of the Realm, so it is also a lot like Pandemic. It is a threat management style game. But there are a lot of surprises, and the game can go on for a little long, so I don't play it that often, but I've been feeling the urge to get that to the table recently. All right, so next up, we're going to take a quick look at Post-Human. Post-Human is a game that I have done a review for. It is a neat little game. Well, I'm sorry about that. It is a neat little game that has a lot of cards. A lot of small decks of cards. You're basically moving from point A to point B to point C along a little map, and at each point you're going to have to face a different kind of challenge, whether that be a combat challenge or a non-combat challenge. You're going to have to manage some resources and try to stay alive until you get to the end of the trek. Once again, it is a game that is better competitively, because as you take damage, you can actually mutate and become like an enemy to harm the other players. The solo mode is not it's not really a full game because you miss that element. It's still kind of fun. It does take a little bit of time to set up just because there are so many small little cards, but this is a pretty good game. I like it. I have not played Post-Human Saga, which is kind of like the pseudo-spiritual sequel follow-up to this. But so this is the original version, Post-Human Survive, Evolve. And next up, we'll just take a quick look at Waste Nights. So this is the game that I recently reviewed. I am enjoying the game. I don't think it's like an amazing game, but I really like it. It's surprising because all too often these days, these kind of Kickstarter adventure games, they tend to be a lot of work. They're kind of stressful to set up, to store, to organize. But this was a very pleasant experience. So my first experience with this was pleasant. And that kind of informed my opinion on the game. It eased me into the game. I like it. It is a little more linear, a little more on rails than what I would like. I would really like to see a big, sprawling kind of roguelike survival wasteland crawl style game. So I'm hoping we get that from the developers. So that was Waste Nights. Next up, we have an expansion for Shadows of Brimstone. And that is a deluxe expansion, and that is Blasted Wastes, which takes your heroes from the east, from the west, and puts them into Mad Max world. This is a really good deluxe expansion. If you don't have this expansion and you have Shadows of Brimstone, any of the sets, this is well worth getting. It adds 2 map tile sets to go through. It adds some more environmental dangers. It has a really good barter town where it's like each time you visit the barter town, the town is worshiping. They're kind of like different cargo cults. You know, they've developed these weird superstitions about old relics, kind of like the kids in Beyond Thunderdome. So a really, really good deluxe expansion for Shadows of Brimstone. The worst thing about it is that it's just more Shadows of Brimstone, and like a lot of us who have a ton of stuff for Shadows of Brimstone, the more we add, the harder the game gets to manage. But I highly recommend this expansion, probably like right after the Frontier Town, and yeah, maybe just right after Frontier Town. I think this is a really good expansion, and it's fun to add those apocalyptic themes into Shadows of Brimstone. All right, next up we have Aftermath. This is the game for you if you like Beast Epics, Watership Down, Book of the Dung Cow, Mice and Mystics, that kind of stuff. This is also the game for you if you want a campaign. Believe it or not, I think this is the only like campaign style game that I have in the post-apocalyptic world. Shadows of Brimstone is kind of a campaign. It's a campaign in that it's a character arc campaign, not a story campaign. So Aftermath, not only is it a good story arc campaign, but it is also manageable, and you can actually get through it because it's not like an overabundance. It's a manageable length of a campaign. Of course, this is from Jerry Hawthorne and part of his adventure book series. You'll have to battle your way through things like as these little rodents and critters. This is a critter crawl, as I like to call them. You will have to battle your way through vending machines and the ruins of human civilization as you try to find food and crafting materials to upgrade your critter base and figure out what is going on, what caused this apocalyptic world. It has a really interesting win condition where you're just trying to satisfy personal goals for some of the little critters. And I really enjoy the win condition in this game. Unfortunately, it also has a pretty poor rulebook and documentation, and so it can, for such a simple game, it can be difficult to learn without assistance. But if you're looking for a cool campaign, this is the game for you, and it is very charming. Next up is Fallout. Now, before the expansions, I liked Fallout the board game a lot more than most people. I thought it was pretty fun, especially as a solo game. With the New California expansion, I liked it even more. And now with the Atomic Bonds expansion, which turns it into a full co-op game, the way that it probably should have been from the beginning, I like it even more, and I have no problem calling this a great game now. I think this is a great game if you add the expansions. So that is quite a bit of a financial investment, but I think it's worth it. This game presents the illusion of exploration that I'm always talking about. It When I played it, it is easy to get lost in the world. It feels like anything can happen, and a lot of that has to do with the absolutely giant deck of quest cards, the story cards, which, I mean, with the expansions, you are looking at a huge pile of potential quests. The quests have branching paths, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is a neat game, and like I said, I especially like it now that it is a full co-op experience, and it's very good as a solo adventure game. And next up, and last but not least, is Zona, the Secret of Chernobyl. So Zona, this is the game for you if you, again, want to focus on something more competitive with an interesting theme and great art. If you like those things, this is your game. There is a solo mode, but it's more like playing Talisman or Runebound 2nd Edition solo. You're just kind of playing the game without an element of competition. Like Waste Nights, this is a game that is totally manageable. Like I said in my review for Waste Nights, it's a small game that all fits in a box. It's easy to set up, it's easy to take down, it's easy to learn to play and put away, which is a huge bonus in today's like super large Kickstarter world. And this is the same. It's a very nice box. Everything fits super easily, and there are spots for everything. You can get everything out super easily to get set up on the table. The art is amazing, and the theme is interesting, and it's different. It has a different feel than a lot of the other post-apocalyptic games, because this is like taking place, you know, in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. And if you like Stalker, if you like Roadside Picnic, if you like that kind of like a Eastern European Russian style post-apocalyptic setting, then Zona, the Secret of Chernobyl is the game for you. So all right, well, I hope you enjoyed taking a brief look at all of these post-apocalyptic games. Hopefully I gave you some information that you can use if you would like to pick one up, which one is best for you. So all right guys, take it easy, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.